So in the previous topic, I introduced you to the drama game, more specifically the drama triangle, and the three key players who take on the roles of persecutor, rescuer, and victim. Now, for us to start becoming more aware of this drama game, it is important for us to understand the unhealthy ego behaviors that each player takes on. And not only that, why do we get sucked into the drama game? What is in it for us? What's our payoff? So as we begin to understand these unhealthy ego behaviors as well as the payoffs, then we're in a better position to notice that the game is being played. Now in this topic, we will explore the persecutor's behaviors and their payoffs, as well as how we can stay out of the persecutor role. The persecutor is generally the bad guy role in the drama game. Mostly it's avoided by many unless they find a reason to be justified in displaying negative and repressed feelings such as anger or rage. They will look for where things go wrong to do this. Once they have found the reason, they dump their repressed anger on the victim, and in return they get their energy payoff. That feeling of, I am good and you are bad. This righteous indignation by putting others down using guilt, naming, shaming, and blaming. Now, when the persecutor finds an excuse to behave indignantly righteous, they may hit the victim with that niggy sob, which I mentioned in the last topic. This stands for, now I got you, you son of a... So, for example, Mike the electrician provides services to Jeff, which he quoted for $200. After he completes his services, which were done perfectly, he sends an invoice to Jeff. Jeff notices that one line on the invoice is incorrectly invoiced and that it comes to $210, not $200. So Jeff uses this as an excuse to scream at Mike and accuses him of pulling a fast one, and he refuses to pay, instead of really just paying the $200 and letting Mike know what had happened. Jeff is using this niggy sob to justify his antisocial behavior towards Mike, that screaming and shouting, and he is also possibly holding Mike hostage to any further extra services he may need before he pays. Now this niggy sob can be found in other scenarios. The manager that finds one thing wrong, ignoring the other 20 things done right by his team member when it comes to salary review, or that overly critical spouse or parent that points out everything that their spouse or children are doing wrong, overlooking the stuff that goes right. There is also this underlying language behind the persecutors blaming, naming, and shaming. It's all your fault. See what you made me do, they will say, which allows them to feel dominant or in control of the other person. They usually provoke the drama through gaslighting, throwing out that bait with the hidden hook to activate the other person's hot buttons, which then further justifies their unleashing of negative behavior. They have unnecessary restrictive rules and limits with which they operate, and generally do not take accountability for their part of whatever they are blaming the other person for. Now, interestingly enough, when someone rejects their aggressive behavior and expresses justified anger in return, this shifts the persecutor into the victim role, where they then blame their victim for now being the persecutor. So how can we manage ourselves when facing a persecutor? Well, it's important to identify and notice when you are being set up by another persecutor. Don't take the bait. Notice the urge, that urge to want to react. Otherwise, you will take on the persecutor role. Yes, address what you must, but respond from a place of clarity and not from a place of reactiveness. You will recall the work around managing your hot buttons in earlier topics. These are important to work with when it comes to the gaslighting of the persecutor that potentially sucks you into the game. If you're feeling fog, fear, obligation, or guilt, which the persecutor is placing on you, then you are most likely in a very unhealthy relationship where you are dealing with a manipulator. If the other person or persons in the game refuse to participate in healthy communication or interactions, figure out a way to remove yourself from the game. This is particularly difficult to do, and we will look at an additional tool to help with this towards the end of the module. Now, when it comes to preventing ourselves from stepping into the persecutor role, there are a number of ways that we can prevent this from happening. Firstly, work with your emotional agility that we covered in Module 1. The more we are aware of our emotions and fears, the less likelihood that we will feel the urge to want to take these out on others. Notice the urge to guilt, to name, to blame, or to shame someone, regardless of whether you know them or not. For example, that person in the traffic. Now, secondly, work with your hot buttons that we covered in Module 2. The exercises will help reduce this tendency to step into the persecutor role. Thirdly, notice your ladder of inference. Are you making assumptions or adding meanings that intensify this urge to step into this role of the persecutor? Work with your exercises around your thoughts that amplify the urges to take on this role. Fourthly, notice your inner voice that prompts the persecutor to come out. In the inner voices exercise from topic 14, you'll recall that there was the persecutor voice, the one that says it's all your fault, which blames others when things go wrong. This inner voice criticizes quickly and behaves like a critical parent. It looks for where things are going wrong more than where they are going right. Work with the tools around your persecutor inner voice that we provided in that exercise and do your best to detach from this story. What other story could you tell yourself? Last but not least, in general, observe the urge to obsess, overreact or underreact, preach, threaten, lecture, consistently monitor or criticize others. Remember, if you notice you're creating fog, fear, obligation and guilt for the other person, you are the manipulator. So do your best to communicate honestly and openly with integrity. Also do your best to find gratitude and forgiveness in any situation, as gratitude and forgiveness have no place in the drama game. Now, we may not be able to control how other people treat us, but I feel we are certainly in control of how we can treat other people, especially as we build up our awareness around these unhealthy ego behaviors behind the persecutor role. And I feel as we start stepping away from this role, what we're doing is we are stepping towards taking accountability for our own well-being and our own mental health. And I feel this is also important in the most smallest of ways. For example, you look at social media, if you go to those comment sections, you'll see a lot of unkind comments being made. And this might also suck us into the game where we are now becoming a persecutor to the person who persecuted us. And I feel as we just let it be and step away, well, I feel that is really part of this accountability that we take on for ourselves. Now, we will continue with this journey in the next topic. We'll look at the rescuer role. We'll go into a bit more detail behind the rescuer role, and we'll look at why it's so important to step away from that role as well. Now, as we finish off, I leave you with a very short quote by Hubert Humphrey. To err is human. To blame someone else is politics. So I will see you in the next topic, and until then, take care and stay away.